আমেরিকাতে বাংলাদেশি ডাক্তারদের বোধহয় সংগঠনে একটা আহ, ইয়ে আছে, মিটিং আছে, সেখানে তারা বিজি। রফিক স্যার, হাফিজ স্যার দুজনই।
তুষার ভাই, এখন থেকে জাস্ট 10
হ্যাঁ,
সেকেন্ড পরের থেকে কথা বলা শোনো, জাস্ট 10 সেকেন্ড।
ওকে। Assalamu alaikum, respected physicians. Good evening. Welcome you all in today's presentation organized by ECG Study Group in association with Bexenco Pharma. Today is our 42nd lecture, and the topic of today is chamber enlargement and hypertrophy. Our speaker is Dr. Swadesh Chakraborty, Assistant Professor, Department of Cardiology, Shohid Sheikh Abu Nasser Specialized Hospital, Khulna. Before the start, I'd like to request Professor Abdul Wadi Chaudhary, sir, to say some words about Dr. Swadesh Chakraborty, and then we proceed. Wadi sir.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening to everybody. I hope during this third wave of COVID pandemic, all of you are remaining in good health and praying to God that you should remain so. Today, we are going to have a very basic lecture, chamber enlargement and hypertrophy, how much an ECG can tell us. Who is going to speak about it? Dr. Swadesh Chakraborty. I'm fortunate enough. I have been a teacher to him when he was doing his post-graduation in cardiology. So today I am a proud parent teacher, I would say. Swadesh lives in Khulna, but despite in a peripheral zone of Bangladesh, he is always active academically. And you can always find him before the pandemic in all the conferences, he's there. During this pandemic, in all these digital conferences, meetings, lectures, you'll be finding him as a very attentive spectator. So let's find out how this young prodigy of ours is doing. And I hope all of us will enjoy the lecture. Dr. Swadesh Chakraborty, we feel proud of you and hope that you will shine in future. Thank you, everybody. Swadesh, you can start your lecture, you can share.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words. Respected course director and founder of ECG Study Group, Professor Abdul Wadi Chaudhary, Professor M. Atahar Ali, International Director, Dr. Rafiq Ahmed, and Professor Chaudhary Hafiz Hassan, our learned audience, good evening. Welcome you all to today's ECG study session. As in introduction, you have heard I am working in Shohid Sheikh Abu Nasser Specialized Hospital in Khulna. Few words, Shohid Sheikh Abu Nasser was younger brother of father of nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. He became martyr with father of nation the 15th August 1975. This hospital started serving the population in 30th March 2010. It is a 250-bedded hospital with 10 specialties like cardiology, neurology, neurosurgery, urology, nephrology, burn and plastic surgery, ICU, dentistry, and with allied pathology, radiology imaging, and blood bank. We have a 30-bedded cardiology unit with 2 cath lab facilities. With this, I am starting today's discussion. I express my gratitude and respect to ECG study group to give me the opportunity to take part in this discussion. First, enlargement, dilatation, or hypertrophy. The terms are sometimes used interchangeably. I want to clear a bit. Dilatation of heart chambers in which heart muscles are stressed and chamber become enlarged. Hypertrophy in which the heart muscle fibers actually increase in size with resultant enlargement of chamber. And the term enlargement encompasses both dilatation and hypertrophy. Cardiac chamber enlargement may occur due to either increase in blood volume within the chamber termed volume overload or diastolic overload that causes dilatation of chambers. An increase in resistance of blood flow out of it termed pressure overload or systolic overload, causing increase of thickness of myocardial wall of chamber. Overload rather than enlargement may be more appropriate term, as ECG changes appear before measurable changes of dilatation or hypertrophy of cardiac chambers. Hypertrophy and dilatation frequently occurs together as both are ways in which heart compensate to maximize the cardiac output. Atria, which are thin-walled, tends to respond by dilatation in both pressure and volume overload. Enlargement of cardiac chambers is common and results in disease affecting the heart and lungs. The growth in chamber size or wall thickness reflects disease progression and is associated with increasing morbidity and mortality. Although echocardiography or magnetic resonance imaging is required to confirm the chamber enlargement, the ECG often reflects these changes. 3 basic changes may occur in ECG. The chamber may take longer to depolarize, potentially causing an ECG waveform of prolonged duration. The enlarged chamber may generate more current than normal, thereby producing greater voltage and an ECG waveform of increased amplitude. A larger percentage of total electrical current may move through the expanded chamber, thus shifting the electrical axis of the ECG. Here you can see what changes occurs. The ECG duration may increase, the amplitude may increase, and axis may be changed. So if we consider ECG, the major waves are P, QRS, and the T. The P wave represents atrial depolarization. So P wave is assessed for evidence of atrial enlargement. Similarly, QRS complex is assessed for determining ventricular enlargement. Now, atrial activation. SA node initiates the activation of atrium. SA node is situated in right atrium. So right atrial activation begins first and constitute the ascending limb of the P wave, the first component of the P wave. Left atrial activation starts a bit later, and it forms the descending limb of the P wave. And the normal duration of P wave is 0.08 to 0.11 second. Amplitude less than 2.5 millimeter. This is a normal P wave. The A, you see the blunt, and in B, the first part is the right atrial component, and in figure C, the left atrial component. P wave is best evaluated in lead V1 and lead 2. The P wave in V1 usually biphasic, initially positive, and the terminal negative deflection. SA node is situated in right atrium, and right atrium is situated to anterior to left atrium. So vector of right atrial activation is directed toward the V1 lead. That's why the initial deflection is positive deflection. And left atrial activation begins a bit later, and the vector is away from the beyond lead, resulting in a shallow negative deflection. Here you can see again, the one is for right atrial activation line, right atrial activation, and 2 is the left atrial activation line or left atrial component. So atrial depolarization path spread from right to left and downwards towards the atrioventricular junction that constitutes the frontal plane P wave axis, which is plus 45 to plus 46 degree. You see the P wave axis, and P wave is always negative in AVR and always positive in lead 2. This is the normal characteristics of P wave. I will not go in repetition. So what happens in right atrial enlargement? Many diseases of right side of the heart and lungs are associated with ECG abnormalities. There's a long list that causes the right atrial enlargement: the valvular disease, tricuspid stenosis or regurgitation, the pulmonary hypertension, COPD, and severe LV systolic dysfunction, mitral valve disease, interstitial lung disease, and congenital heart disease like pulmonary stenosis, tetralogy of Fallot's, and Ebstein anomaly. In practice, most cases of right atrial enlargement are associated with right ventricular hypertrophy. ECG features of right atrial enlargement without right ventricular hypertrophy seen in tricuspid stenosis. Now, what happens in right atrial enlargement? The P wave 2.5 millimeter or greater in height, usually in lead 2, P wave often has a sharp peaked appearance, and this increased voltage is caused by hypertrophy or acute strain of right atrial tissue. Total duration remains normal. Different types of P wave, you can see actually it denotes the underlying pathology: the P pulmonally, P congenitally, P tricuspidally, and P Ebstein. P Ebstein probably the tallest P wave seen in lead 2. In the picture, you can see the right atrial enlargement. And diagnostic accuracy by ECG, most cases the sensitivity is limited, but specificity is high. It is applicable all the 4 chambers. Some conditions, acute pulmonary embolism, acute bronchial asthma, arterial desaturation, and coronary artery disease may present temporarily P pulmonary pattern. Now, if left atrial enlargement, the differential diagnosis again, the valvular disease, mitral stenosis, mitral regurgitation, decreased left ventricular compliance, long-standing hypertension, aortic stenosis, aortic regurgitation, obstructive cardiomyopathy, all may cause left atrial enlargement. The ECG pattern of left atrial enlargement may evolve from conditions such as left atrial hypertension, hypertrophy, or impaired interatrial conduction. 3 basic ECG changes occurs in left atrial enlargement. It is prolongation and delay in the terminal or left atrial component of atrial activation. And there is increased posterior deviation of left atrial vector as well as left axis deviation and mean frontal plane P wave axis. So that causes the P wave is prolonged due to delay in left atrial or terminal component and manifest in lead 2. When there is left axis deviation of P wave, the features of manifestation is best seen in lead 1 and AVL. P wave shows double peaked or camel hump. Duration of P wave is longer than 0.11 second, and distance between the camel hump is more than 0.04 second. P mitrally, a term used to describe a wide and abnormally notched P wave commonly seen in patients who have mitral stenosis and possibly LA enlargement. Another term, the P wave terminal force or Morris index. In lead V1, the terminal negative deflection of P wave is measured. The depth of P wave is multiplied by duration. It is called Morris index, and the normal value is less than 0.03 millimeter second. More than 0.03 millimeter second, it indicates LA enlargement. Again, diagnostic accuracy, the sensitivity is low as around 20%, and the specificity is high, it is around 98%. So in summary, if we see what happens in left atrium and right atrial enlargement, you can see in left atrial there is duration is increased, and the terminal force in V1, terminal P wave, is more than 0.04. And in right atrium, it is the tall peak P wave and the lead 2 and V1. Here is the picture of atrial enlargement. The upper one is for right atrial enlargement. You can see the tall peak P1, and the lower one showed the left atrial enlargement, the broad biped P1, lead V2, and the negative deflection in V1. When both atria become enlarged, what happens? Abnormalities of both atria affect different components of the P wave with ECG pattern manifesting characteristics of both left and right atrial enlargement. Large biphasic P wave in V1 with initial positive portion of P wave greater than 1.5 millimeter, and the terminal negative component up to 1 millimeter in depth and 0.04 second in duration. That is abnormal P terminal force. Tall peaked P wave more than 1.5 millimeter right precordial leads, V1, V2, and wide notched P wave in limb leads. It's 1, 2, 3, AVR, AVL, and AVF. Left precordial leads also there is wide and notched. They increase both amplitude and duration of the P wave in limb leads. So in summary, the atrial enlargement, you can see lead 2 and V1. Differential diagnosis, again, mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension, mitral stenosis with tricuspid regurgitation, mitral stenosis with tricuspid stenosis, and atrial septal defect. Now, ventricular enlargement. Again, ventricular enlargement, there is volume overload and pressure overload. We see what happens. The ventricles consists of interventricular septum and the free wall of the right and left ventricle. Free wall of the left ventricle is at least 3 times thicker than that of the right ventricle, and interventricular septum forms a continuum with the free wall of the left ventricle. QRS complex reflects ventricular depolarization. Activation of ventricles begins in the left subendocardial region of lower 1/3 of interventricular septum, spreading transversely from left to right. Mark it, it transversely spread from left to right, sometimes referred as septal force or septal vector. This is followed by depolarization of the ventricles. The impulse is delivered to the subendocardium of both ventricles at about the same time, resulting in an almost simultaneous depolarization from endocardium to epicardium. You can see here in first picture, it is the septal vector which traverses from left to right. And then at the apex, the impulse traverses from endocardium to epicardium. In right ventricle, it is left to right, and in left ventricle, it is right to left. So the large right to left force of the free wall of the LV will dominate and counteracts the small left to right force of the free wall of RV, resulting in a net effective vector which is directed from right to left through the free wall of the LV. Thus, the activation of ventricles may be depicted as a small initial vector from left to right, through IVS, followed by a large vector from right to left to the free wall of LV. Now, what happens in normal QRS? Normal QRS duration is 0.06 to 0.10 second. QRS will be predominantly upright in lead 1, 2, 3, AVL, AVF, and V4 to V6. R wave begins as a small upright waveform in lead V1 and becomes progressively taller across the left precordial leads. In addition, the S wave is deep in lead V1 and becomes progressively smaller across the left precordial leads. Lead 1 AVL V6 will show a small initial Q wave representing the mean septal vector traveling away from these leads. And this Q wave is followed by a relatively tall R wave, which represents the mean QRS vector traveling through LV toward the positive electrodes. The V1 and V2, the mean septal vector is directed toward these leads, inscribing a small R wave. This is followed by relatively deep S wave, which results from the mean QRS vector traveling through the LV from the opposite electrodes. Another term, the intrinsic deflection or ventricular activation time, is used to represent the ventricular activation or time required to peak voltage to develop. Is the measured from the onset of QRS complex to the peak of the R wave. For right ventricle, it is measured from V1 and it is approximately 0.02 second. And for left ventricle, it is measured from V6 and it is approximately 0.04 second. The ventricular activation time, normal, how measured. Different types of QRS complex. Now come to the axis. Normal QRS frontal plane axis is within plus 40 to 60. You see, it is plus 40 to 60. Axis between minus 30 to plus 120 is considered usually normal. Beyond minus 30, it is left axis deviation, and beyond 120, it is right axis deviation. Sometimes axis may in extreme axis or northwest axis, this is called when it is minus 90 to plus 180. With this knowledge, we'll start to discuss about left ventricular hypertrophy. A long list of the causes of left ventricular hypertrophy: systolic overload or pressure overload, is aortic stenosis, hypertension, coarctation of aorta, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, and in diastolic overload or volume overload, there is the mitral regurgitation, aortic regurgitation, right to left shunt, PSD or PDA. ECG characteristics of LV enlargement. When LV enlarges, the normal sequence of ventricular depolarization is retained, but the electrical dominance of LV over RV is increased. Patients with LV enlargement, the mean QRS vector travels more posteriorly and leftward, increasing ventricular time and voltage in certain leads. Secondary abnormalities in the STT segments are common in later stage of LV enlargement and are referred to as strain. Many complex criteria are used to diagnose LV enlargement with 12-lead ECG. It should be remembered that ECG changes associated with LV enlargement occur primarily in QRS complex, and that these criteria for diagnosing LV enlargement reflect two common themes: increased amplitude of R wave in leads overlying the left ventricle, and increased amplitude of S wave in leads overlying the right ventricle. Usually, the precordial leads are more sensitive indicators than limb leads. Precordial lead criteria are less value in persons less than 35 years of old. Most voltage criteria sensitivity is low, but specificity is high. The more criteria present, more likely the patients have enlargement of the LV. R-wave amplitude in lead V5 or V6 plus S-wave amplitude in lead V1 or V2 exceeding 35 mm is often considered the most accurate. First criteria listed for limb leads is R-wave amplitude in lead AVL exceeding 13 mm is probably the most useful. The diagnostic accuracy of ECG for LV enlargement is improved when ST depression and T-wave inversion accompany the aforementioned voltage criteria. And additional ECG clues for detecting LV enlargement are left atrial enlargement, delayed onset of intrinsic deflection, and deviation of axis to the left. Many criteria mentioned in different textbooks. I am not going in details. This is the Shokolo-Lyon voltage criteria. There is the ST scoring system, the QRS, ST segment, left axis deviation, intrinsic deflection, QRS duration, and P-terminal force. These 6 heading, it is scored 5 or more, it is LVH, or 4, it is probable. There are some Cornell criteria, Framingham criteria, natural history series criteria, Tolbert criteria, not going in details. Systolic versus diastolic overload. In systolic overload, the criteria of LV strain are evident: ST segment depression, T-wave inversion, and E-wave inversion in left precordial leads in sometimes. And in diastolic overload, R-wave is markedly increased and the T-wave is upright, large, and pointed. In figure, you can see the systolic and diastolic overload. This is the picture. The first one, you can see the diastolic overload, and in second one, you see the systolic overload. The R1 AVL, and there is a deep S wave in V1, V2, and in lower ECG, there is STT segment changes in lateral leads. Differentiation between left bundle branch block and LVH. One general rule for differentiating between left bundle branch block and LVH is that greater the amplitude of QRS complex, more likely the LVH. The more prolonged duration of QRS complex, the more likely the left bundle branch block. Klein and colleagues have suggested that in presence of left bundle branch block, either the following criteria are associated with LVH: S wave in V2 plus R wave in V6 more than 45 mm, and evidence of left atrial enlargement with QRS complex more than 0.16 second. There is another criteria for LVH in left bundle branch patient, not going in details. LVH in presence of left anterior hemiblock. Left anterior hemiblock, there is increased QRS voltage without STT changes. R wave in AVL more than 13 mm, S in 2 plus maximum sum of R plus S in any precordial leads more than 30 mm, S in 3 deeper than 15 mm, and features of left atrial enlargement. Probably, in if these criteria are present, there is LVH and a left anterior hemiblock. LVH in presence of right bundle branch block. Usual criteria of LVH has to be applied. However, right bundle branch block may reduce the sensitivity. In combination of left atrial enlargement or left axis deviation with right bundle branch block, suggests left ventricular hypertrophy. Some factors that may produce ECG, like left ventricular enlargement. Now come right ventricular hypertrophy and enlargement. The differential diagnosis are pulmonary stenosis, mitral stenosis, ventricular septal defect, atrial septal defect, and pulmonary hypertension of other causes like COPD and sleep apnea, interstitial lung disease, and as well as pulmonary embolism. Normally, left ventricle is anatomically and electrophysically the dominant ventricle. Mean right ventricular vector travels in an anterior and rightward direction that is usually overshadowed by the dominant left ventricle. Mild enlargement of RV usually does not produce significant ECG abnormalities. With increasing enlargement of the RV mass may equal and may eventually dominate the electrical effects of LV. What happens when the RV enlarges and dominates the LV? You can see in the V1 there is a large S1 normally and the large R1, and the picture is reversed in case of marked right ventricular hypertrophy. And RV enlargement may occur one or more region of the RV. That may be RV free wall, there may be right paraseptal region and basal region of the RV. That causes changes in frontal plane QRS axis, changes in QRS complex, changes in ST segment and TOF, and some other changes. What is the axis changes? The earliest manifestation of RV enlargement is a progressive deviation of axis to the right. Right axis that exceeds more than 100 degrees is considered significant RV enlargement. In lead 1, right axis deviation is manifested by a QRS complex that is more negative than positive. Such right axis deviation usually indicates right free wall hypertrophy. When hypertrophy of the basal region of RV predominates, the frontal plane QRS axis deviates even further to the right superior quadrant. The northwest region occurs in tetralogy of Fallot, transposition complexes, and severe isolated pulmonary stenosis. A second ECG manifestation is progressive decrease in depth of S wave in V1. In cases of RV enlargement, the S wave will be initially small in V1 and become progressively deeper toward lead 6, V6. Simultaneously, the normal pattern of R wave progression is interrupted. In patients with RV enlargement, the R wave in lead V1 is initially large, usually more than 7 mm, and becomes progressively smaller toward leads V6. In V1, if RS ratio becomes more than 1, height of R or R prime is more than 5 mm, the RVS is usually diagnosed. Other changes, RV enlargement may also result in delayed intrinsic deflection of more than 0.03 second in right precordial leads. One of the most specific signs in patients with severe degree of right ventricular enlargement and hypertrophy is a QR wave seen in lead V1. The reason for this QR wave is not fully understood. However, it is believed to result from the initial septal vector being altered because of the increased muscle mass of the septum. And additional criteria for RV enlargement includes the ST-TOF abnormalities representing ventricular strain, is ST depression and TOF inversion in lead V1, V2, and 2, 3 AVA. A question most time asked in the exam, differential diagnosis of tall R in V1. Another criteria, Mockler-Leger criteria, not going in details for RV enlargement. The summary of ECG diagnostic criteria for RV enlargement. Right axis deviation of 100 degree or more in the limb leads. R in lead V1 greater than S, and S in lead V6 greater than R. Delayed intrinsic deflection in lead V1 is greater than 0.035 second. Secondary ST-TOF changes in lead V1, V2, 2, 3, and AVF. RA enlargement and QR in lead V1. And another S1, Q3, T3, so less sensitivity, but specificity is high. In this picture, you can see there is a right axis deviation, see lead V1 and lead 3 is the early sign of RBA hypertrophy. And in first ECG, you see there is a strain pattern, the right axis deviation as well as the strain pattern in right ventricle, probably the severe RB enlargement. And another ECG, you see the large R wave in V1. Now RV diastolic overload. Diastolic overload occurs when there is excessive filling of RV during diastole. It is, we can see in atrial septal defect. The ECG represents the incomplete or complete right bundle branch block, RSR deflection. RBH in presence of right bundle branch block or left bundle branch block. Right bundle branch block itself may indicate RBH. However, it reduces specificity and sensitivity of criteria for diagnosis of RBH. The R in V1 more than 1.5 millivolt is suggestive of RBH, and right axis deviation with R in V1 more than 1.5. The presence of left bundle branch block is difficult, but right axis deviation with left bundle branch block may suggest RBH. Now come biventricular enlargement. What happens in biventricular enlargement? Both the ventricular enlargement criteria may remain in the ECG. You see the lead 1 and V1. V1 is the most important lead which indicates the dominance of the ventricle. You see in normal there is a small r and large s. Left ventricular enlargement, the r is absent and there is a large Q wave, or if there is a small r, there is a large S wave. And right ventricular enlargement, there is a large R wave, and both enlargement is the RS pattern. Enlargement or hypertrophy both ventricle produces complex ECG patterns. The effects of enlargement of one chamber may cancel the effect of enlargement of other. The ECG evidence of LVH with right axis deviation, the ECG evidence of LVH with clockwise rotation, ECG evidence of LVH relatively tall R wave in V1 and RS ratio more than 1, and in commonly seen in Eisenmenger syndrome, manifest as tall R wave in left precordial leads, tall R wave in right precordial leads, and large equiphasic QRS complex in mid epicardial leads, commonly known as Kars-Wassel phenomena. When P wave is reflecting the left atrial abnormality, a combination of any of one may follow. The RS ratio in lead V5 and V6 equal or less than 1, S wave in V5 or V6 more than 7, and right axis deviation. Kars-Wassel phenomena probably. Summary of ECG diagnostic criteria for biventricular enlargement. There is left atrial enlargement, S greater or equal to R in lead V5 or lead V6, S in lead V5 or V6 equal to 7 or more, right axis deviation of greater than 100. The picture showing the biventricular enlargement. Large equiphasic R and S in the precordial leads, as well as the left ventricular and right ventricular enlargement. Probably I am in the last of my lecture, so this COVID pandemic. I express my deep condolence to our colleagues and health workers who left us in this COVID pandemic. And a few words, though respiratory system involvement produces dominant features of COVID-19, cardiovascular system involvement plays important role in clinical outcome. Myocardial injury, myocarditis with LV or right ventricular dysfunction, and the right ventricular enlargement are major predictors of mortality risk. With these few words, I have to stop here. Thank you for your patience there.
Thank you, Dr. Swadesh. Now I request Wadud sir to say some words regarding the presentation and his views on chamber enlargement and hypertrophy.
Well, Swadesh has given a very heavyweight lecture. I would have gone very light. Let's see. Look at the ECG. If you see the QRS complex is negative there, then what are the possibilities? Have I done the ECG correctly? Is there any dextrocardia or lead transposition? Let's go to AVR. The P wave is upright there, and the P wave is upright in lead 1, 2. Then it's quite all right. This is really right exit division. Then what are the possibilities? Is it really dextrocardia? Let's go to the V1. Tall R in there, small r in V6. So the R is going gradually down from right to left. Instead, normally what happens? R wave is smaller in V1, V2, it's bigger in V5, V6. If the other way around, and P wave is upright in lead 2, 3, that means I have done the ECG properly, and there is actually right exit division because the heart is on the right side. But it's not there. So what will happen? This is right exit division. Then I will consider two things. Is it right ventricular hypertrophy, or is it due to exit division due to vesicular block? Then I will have a look at the P1 again with only 2 or 3 leads is important. Tall R in P1. Have a look at the P wave. If P wave is sharp, tall, then it's P pulmonale. There is right atrial enlargement, right ventricular enlargement, that right exit division is due to that. I got all the chamber enlargement with quite a good answer. But let's go for again. Can I get some more information from it? If there is biatrial enlargement, there is the positive component in V1 is sharp, a little bit taller, but the negative component is also big. That means there is left atrial enlargement, right atrial enlargement, right ventricular enlargement. I will look at the age. If it is 26, 27, 17, the answer is quite easy. This is mitral stenosis with pulmonary hypertension, resulting in right atrial enlargement and right ventricular enlargement as well. You get the answer from there. But if the P wave is very big, sharp, then this is right atrial enlargement, right ventricular enlargement due to severe pulmonary hypertension. That may be congenital heart disease, or there may be cor pulmonale. Again, look at the age. If it is a 60 years old, this is likely to be cor pulmonale. If it is due to around 20s and 30s, I would say this is congenital heart disease, pulmonary stenosis or something like that. This is the way you can look at the ECG and it can tell you a story. Chamber enlargement is important for that reason. Do not bother about intrinsic deflection, etc., etc. These are very important points for when we detail ECG diagnosis there. That's a very academic lecture, but for practical purpose, do not get disheartened. Have a look, enjoy the ECG, and find out how he can get a story out of the simple chamber enlargements. Thank you. Thank you, Swadesh, for a very thorough lecture.
Now I request Jamil sir to give his views.
First of all, I say about Swadesh. I got him when I was junior consultant medicine in Sorodhi Hospital. He joined us as an honorary medical officer. Their number of patients were very less. So after the round of madam and finishing the ward works, ample of time was there. So I used to teach them Swadesh and including other honorary medical officer and existing assistant registrar and medical officer of the government service. Among them, most of them are now established. Swadesh in Khulna, Ahsan Habib in DSMU associate professor, and then Liaquat, he became the principal of Gopanganj Medical College. Then Sabina Hashem in NICVD, associate professor. So these all were with us in the Sarathy Medical College. It was not medical college at that time, it was a general hospital. And from there, they spread out. And I know Swadesh very closely. He worked with us, probably it was 6 months, no, Swadesh?
Sir, ek bochor, sir.
Ek bochor, okay. So he's a very talented guy and very sincere boy. And he used to work very sincerely. And today his lecture was amazing, as because he left no stone unturned about chamber enlargement from ECG. So I have not much to say about the lecture. It was excellent, that I should say. Thank you.
There are a few questions in the chat box. One important question is, how can we differentiate LV strain with ischemia? What sir?
Whenever we get a ECG, the most important thing is look at the clinical context. What is the age? What is the name? What is the clinical information given to you? Then try to interpret it. Now, if there is left ventricular enlargement, evidence is there, and the ST depression is downsloping, and there is also evidence of left ventricular enlargement. And if the patient is a 50 or 60 years old, there's very likely to be hypertensive heart disease with left ventricular strain pattern. Now, left ventricular strain pattern, I expected to have T inversion, ST depression in anterolateral leads, 1, AVL 4, 5, 6. But if the T inversion is present in V1, V2, V3, that's not supposed to happen. Just the right ventricular zone or the septal zone, they're likely to be associated ischemia as well. Or if the ST depression is horizontal, T wave is symmetrically inverted, there's more likely going in favor of ischemia. These are the points. You look at the whole thing, then have a picture. Actually, if I can show you the different types of chamber enlargement and the implications, that would have been very nice.
Yes, thank you, sir. And another most frequently asked question during exam is that why the changes differ in volume overload and pressure overload? Why there is strain pattern?
I wish I could show you the chamber enlargement. Again, you get the left ventricular enlargement, the Sokolow criteria or Lyon criteria, whatever it is, are in V5 or 6, S in V1, more than 35 millimeter is definitely chamber enlargement, left ventricular hypertrophy. Now, look at the T wave. If the T wave is upright, this is more likely volume overload. And if it is volume overload, then you are expected to have a big left ventricular enlargement. You should get a very negative T wave, P wave complex in V1. They should be there because it's volume overload. Either it's MR or due to air. Remember that in case of AR, often it is associated with aortic stenosis. So you get a mixed picture. But in case of MR, you get the typical picture of left ventricular enlargement, but the T wave remain upright in anterolateral leads instead of inversion. Just a classical example of volume overload.
Can I add something, sir, with the permission?
Yes, yes, please.
Sir, in case of volume overload, especially aortic regurgitation or mitral regurgitation, ECG shows taller in V1, V5, V6, and also T upright, and also initial Q wave. Usually narrow Q wave normally present in 1 ABL, V5, V6, but there is a little bit wider than that of normal. And also U wave, reverse position of U wave also as well, associated with criteria of left ventricular hypertrophy. That is the difference between the volume and pressure overload. And why Q wave is wide here? I'd like to ask, sir, Honorable Sir, Professor Abdullah Choudhury, sir, please.
You can
unmute, sir, unmute, please.
Your question was last question?
Sir, Q wave is lateral chest lead, V5 and V6 in little bit wider than that of normal cases.
Actually, we don't know. Actually, the presence of Q wave in this lead actually indicate the septum is quite hypertrophied.
Yeah.
For example, in case of right ventricular hypertrophy, if you get a QR complex in V1, there's very definitive with right axis deviation. There's very definitely diagnostic of right ventricular hypertrophy. You can be rest assured of it.
Another mechanism is the length of the muscle is large in volume overload.
Can I say something? It's been said because of the septal hypertrophy, it gets a little bit, at the time gets a little bit delayed for the whole activation. That's why they make Q wave maybe enlarged. Jamil Bhai, can you?
No, in the volume overload, the length of the muscle fiber is much long than the pressure overload. As because in pressure overload, the thickness is more. In volume overload, the size of the chamber is large and the fibers are elongated. That is the one mechanism. It traverses a long arc that might contribute some widening of the QRS complex. Yeah. And as the ventricle contracts against large volume, so there is T wave is upright. But in pressure overload, the muscle thickness is high and it contracts against a high pressure in aortic stenosis as well in say severe hypertension. So that causes inversion of the Q wave and this
quite curious.
Another question, sir. Can I add something more?
Sir.
It's interesting that it has been seen, for example, in case of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, there is both number of cells increased, the fiber, myofibril element also increased.
Yes.
In case of volume overload, number of fiber is not increased, but the volume of myofibril is increased. Individual cells become bigger and more elongated. Yes.
Yes. Longer.
Longer. Yeah. Yeah.
And in hypertrophy, it's thicker.
It's thicker and number of fiber may also increase.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Number of fibers, is it increased or it is hypertrophied?
Both. Hypertrophy includes both amount of myofibril increase, amount of number of fiber also increased.
Now, Wadud, as muscle fiber does not generate after birth, so it is the muscle thickness increases and elements increases within the muscle.
Yeah. Oh, I was telling something. Recent reports very suggest in case of hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, there may be something wrong in there.
Maybe. And the alignment of the fibers are busier. Alignment in histologically, the alignment of the fibers are busier.
Array is different.
Yeah.
So I have a few questions. Number one, hypertrophy is there, but it is by ECG, it is easily been diagnosed in many criteria. But enlargement, sometimes if we see in the real practice, especially in the dilated cardiomyopathy, we usually don't get tall R wave. Usually QRS complex a bit widened. So enlargement is one issue and hypertrophy is another issue. and also in atria. Usually in atria, whether it is being told atria is hypertrophic by ECG orientation is LA enlargement, but not hypertrophic. Is it like that? Or
Trophic is a very important point. For example, in case of dilated cardiomyopathy, actually the muscle mass is not that much increased because the heart chamber are in it. And because the muscle mass is not increased, in the limb leads, you do not get taller waves. But in the chest lead, you get very big complexes. And that's one of the suggestions. If you get smaller complexes in limb leads, V1, lead 1 to AVF, and bigger complexes, size is bigger, RS complex as a whole, bigger complexes in chest leads, that suggests chamber is enlarged. But the muscle mass is not enlarged.
As well as
there's very suggestive of dilated cardiomyopathy.
Can I add something, Wadud?
Yes, please.
Your explanation is applicable for the valvular disease that causes volume overload, where we get stall R wave in left-oriented chest leads. But in case of dilated cardiomyopathy, often we don't get any hypertrophy in the ECG. It looks almost similar, only tachycardia is there. When we do the echocardiography, ejection fraction less than 25%, and it's a volume hugely enlarged ventricles. Let's say, and non-specific STT changes are very common in dilated cardiomyopathy. Not typical as stain pattern or tall T wave in the pectoral leads.
Now, my another question is that whether we would say this is atrial hypertrophy or enlargement. That is a question to
in case of atrium, in case of atria, it is enlargement, not hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is a misnomer.
Right.
But in case
in case of ventricle, it is hypertrophy.
Hypertrophy, as especially in the pressure overload and hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
Actually, there is a problem because in case of atria particularly, the chamber may get enlarged without that much of muscle enlargement. But they usually both are present. Both are present. Atria do not get bigger without actually some increase in the muscle mass. But in case of ventricle, that thing is a little bit different. But it's a convention. It's mostly convention, what I say.
Is it interchangeable, sir?
Sometimes yes,
we
sometimes no. Some people will accept it, some people will not.
Atrial,
but you will find out in the books they are using it interchangeably.
Yes, sir.
One thing is acceptable.
Sir, one thing is that we are very much frequently encountered lean and thin body mass, adolescent, young adolescent, left ventricular hypertrophy. We consider the voltage criteria, but patient is normotensive. In that issue, sir, please.
That's why in this decision, I actually said voltage criteria for LVH present. That means I am not saying that any other evidence is there. But whenever there is left atrial enlargement, I also said left ventricular enlargement and left atrial enlargement. But then I am not writing down the word voltage criteria. But I am quite sure of it, there is actually voltage criteria.
Govindo,
yes,
for definitely
that's my practice.
Hypertrophy only from ECG. Don't use only the voltage criteria. Also consider axis. Also consider the QRS width. All these things you should take in consideration. Then say it's hypertrophy. Or if you say get only the voltage criteria, say LVH according to voltage criteria. Mention this one.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, আমি একটু স্যার বলতে পারি?
হ্যাঁ
স্যার, atrial hypertrophy বা atrial enlargementের ক্ষেত্রে ECG ক্রাইটেরিয়াটাকে বলেছে যে এটা atrial abnormality বলতে, not hypertrophy, not enlargement, not dilatation. আর আমার প্রেজেন্টেশনে আমি এটা করছি যে atria usually dilates. Pressure or volume overload usually dilates. আর ইসিজি যদি আমরা বলি তাহলে শুধু অ্যাট্রিয়াল অ্যাবনরমালিটি, কারণ এটা হাইপারট্রফি হতে পারে, ডাইলেটেশন হতে পারে, অথবা ইন্টারঅ্যাট্রিয়াল কন্ডাকশন অ্যাবনরমালিটি হতে পারে।
রাইট, এটার জন্য এইটাকে বলা হচ্ছে। এই জন্য বিভিন্ন বইয়ে ইন্টারচেঞ্জেবল ইউজ করছে, কিন্তু লেফট এট্রিয়াল এনলার্জমেন্ট শব্দটাই বেশি ব্যবহার করা হয়।
এনলার্জমেন্ট। আর স্যার আরেকটা কথা যেটা গোবিন্দদা যেটা বললেন যে ইয়াং এজ, আসলে ভোল্টেজ ক্রাইটেরিয়া গুলি 35 ইয়ার্স এর নিচে এটার সেনসিটিভিটি স্পেসিফিসিটি খুব কম, সেনসিটিভিটি বেশি। তাছাড়া এজ ছাড়াও সেক্স, রেস, যেমন নিগ্রো ব্ল্যাকদের তো ভোল্টেজ অনেক বেশি, ফিমেলের স্যার ভোল্টেজ একটু কম আসবে। অনেকটা যখন ভলিউম ওভারলোডে যখন চেম্বার ডাইলেট করে যায় তখন আরেকটা কথা বলা আছে যে এইটা স্যার ইলেকট্রেড গুলোর কাছাকাছি চলে আসে, যখন সামনের দিকে তখন কাছাকাছি চলে আসে। এই জন্য প্রিকোর্ডিয়াল লিড গুলোতে ভোল্টেজ অনেকটা বেড়ে যায়, প্রিকোর্ডিয়াল লিড গুলো এই জন্য কিছুটা বেশি পাওয়া যায়। আর স্যার টি ইনভার্সন বা স্ট্রেইন এর ক্ষেত্রে তো স্যার আপনি বলছেন চমৎকার। ওখানে আরেকটা কথা বলছে যে এখানে তো রিলেটিভ এন্ডোকার্ডিয়াল ইসকেমিয়া হয়, যেহেতু মাসল মাস খুব বেড়ে যায় এবং এলভিএইচ এর ল্যাটার স্টেজে গিয়ে টি ইনভার্সন বা স্ট্রেন হয়, তো অ্যাসিমেট্রিক্যাল টি ইনভার্সন থাকে। তবে অনেকের ক্ষেত্রে আমরা এটাও আসলে খেয়াল রাখা উচিত, একটু এল্ডারলি পেশেন্ট, হাইপারটেনসিভ, এদের কনকমিটেন্ট ইসকেমিয়াও থাকতে পারে,
ইসকেমিয়া থাকে। মানে এই ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু এটা খেয়াল করতে হবে। আমি কিন্তু অনেক সময় ইসিতে এরকম কমেন্ট লিখি যে এলভিএইচ উইথ স্ট্রেন এন্ড ইসকেমিয়া। আমি দেখি তার ভি1 থেকে তার টি ইনভার্সন সিমেট্রিক্যালটা অনেক বেশি, কিন্তু তার এলভিএইচ ভোল্টেজ ক্রাইটেরিয়া আছে। আমি কিন্তু কমেন্টে এরকম করি, মানে আই ওয়ান্ট টু, মানে এটা সেটা দেওয়াতে চাই যে এর ক্ষেত্রে দুটোই ইউ হ্যাভ টু লুক ফর বোথ। আচ্ছা, আমার একটা ইন্টারেস্ট আছে এখানে, রিমা আছে, রাজওয়ানা রিমা আছে, নাহরুমা আছে, যে বাচ্চাদের ক্ষেত্রে ইন কেস অফ চিলড্রেন the chamber enlargement, is there any other specific significance? Rima, would you please comment?
স্যার বাচ্চাদের ক্ষেত্রে স্যার আমরা যেমন RVH,
Rima, there are many Nepali students, so I'm forgetting that. Can we speak in English as well?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sir, in pediatric age group, RVH যখন আমরা when we used to say RVH, not only this criteria like RN V1 more than 7 millimeter. In case of pediatric age group, we used to term like mild, moderate, and severe RVH. In mild RVH, when there is a RSR pattern and the R prime is more than 11 millimeter or 15 millimeter, then we used to call it mild RVH. There is nothing, there is no other criteria, but only RSR pattern in V1 and the R prime is more than 15 millimeter. Then we can call that it is mild RVH. And moderate and severe RVH is same like in adult criteria. And in LVH also, LVH after 3 years, we can use that that voltage criteria of LVH, and also corresponding, if there is associated left atrial enlargement, then we can usually can say this is LVH is there. Otherwise, it is a bit difficult that to say whether it is not possible always to use Sokolov-Lien criteria. But yes, if in lead V1, RS ratio is more than 1, and in that case we can say RS ratio is less than 1, and V5, V6 RS ratio is more than 1, then we can say LVH is there.
This is important because in case of children, there is right ventricular predominance. So we are supposed to get tall R in V1, V2, V3, and smaller R complexes in left side. But here, the RS ratio in V1 should always be in favor of right ventricle. So the ratio should be more than 1. But if it becomes less than 1, that means left ventricle is enlarged here. Otherwise, it should not have been, the negative component should not have been bigger. That's what Rima is alluding to. Isn't it, Rima?
Yes, sir.
Can I complementary questions, sir? Can I put, sir?
Please, please.
Sir, how can you differentiate ECG change, right ventricular hypertrophy, due to tetralogy of Fallot or isolated pulmonary stenosis, valvular stenosis specifically? Is there any clue?
Rima, would you like to comment?
Sir, in tetralogy of Fallot, there is a pathognomic feature. From there is early changes of RS pattern from V1 to V2. This is pathognomic for tetralogy of Fallot. This early
transition, rapid transition.
Yeah, rapid transition from early transition from V1 to V2. That is pathognomic for tetralogy of Fallot, and severe RVH, severe pulmonary stenosis without any VSD or any ASD. Then you will get that RVH with strain pattern.
Usually. That means the V1 is R height is so high, but suddenly loss of R wave height in V2 and also V3 as well. But before normal progression from V4 onward, V5, V6.
Yes.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you,
And
sir.
also the chamber enlargement. In case of pure pulmonary stenosis, the right enlargement is quite prominent.
Yes.
But in case of tetralogy Fallot, you won't get that.
Yes.
Exactly, sir.
Tushar, are you here?
I'm here, sir. There is no other question to be discussed. All the questions that were asked in the chat box and inbox, we have discussed everything.
Actually, we are a little bit demoralized by the absence of Professor Atahar Ali because his mother is still on ventilator and he could not attend, and we are really, really afraid for her. And also today, Professor Rafiq sir and our Professor Chaudhry Hafizul Hasan, they are actually engaged in another international conference, so they could not attend. So we are missing the very interesting and ECGs presented by Rafiq sir as well. I wish I actually had very good ECGs, but I cannot manage the way Rafiq sir manages those things to put into presentation. I need to have some secretarial assistance from juniors, otherwise I'm missing it. But I'll be showing some.
Yes, it's an organized and orchestrated work. Basically, to present at every session with particular topics. He especially presents the topics which is related to the lecture on that day. So
and
that
actually,
gives much more, that draws much more attention.
Actually, their whole setup is digitalized. That's a very helpful thing. That's very, and he's very expert in presenting this thing.
You are in a medical college, so you can have juniors to.
But we are in a medical college with a COVID era where everybody is, the whole cardiology, normal functioning is totally absent.
And I'm in a private hospital, no academic environment, no assistance.
I was actually, that's what I was saying. I missed that because I cannot go and work normally in my institute.
Okay.
The whole thing is now COVID oriented. And Swadesh, again, I have to thank you for the hard work you have put into your lecture and the detailed lecture you have produced. But I would like you to collect some ECGs as per your lecture. And so we'll be seeing again your examples of different types of enlargement in different diseases. And how can we get the story out of that particular ECG?
Sir, I think we are at the fag end of our presentation and the session today. So before going to express the next topic, we want to tell our audience that we'll take a short time to select the topic, as our moderator, our respected Professor Atahar Ali's mother is still ill. So the next lecture was supposed to be taken by Professor M. Atahar Ali. So we'll let our audience know by the end of Wednesday what will be the next lecture.
Yeah.
Adit sir, your views, please.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll be arranging that.
Sir,
Hopefully.
I'd like to request you to conclude the session.
Thank you, everybody.
May I ask one thing to sir?
Jamil bhai, please.
Have you
please.
stopped the ECG quiz that used to present at the end of the every session before the Ramadan? ECG quiz. It has been stopped after Ramadan.
We'll be starting again. Actually,
okay.
we are a little bit disorganized by whole this third wave and everything.
Yeah.
We are very demoralized and disorganized because of that. That's a problem. Thank you again, everybody, and good night.
You're welcome.
And Ribhu and your Beximco team, again and again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At this moment,
Chakraborty.
At this moment, the way they are helping us is very good. They are
Very